Well, Intel's Mobileye division is continuing to grow its autonomous driving business at a healthy clip. And here now to talk more about Mobileye's latest initiatives is Jack Weiss. He is Vice President of Autonomous Vehicle Standards at Mobileye. Thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We have this advanced driver assistance systems business that has been growing at a very healthy clip. But when you think about Intel's overall revenue, it's a very big company. This is still a pretty small portion of the business in relative terms. What do you think the trajectory of the Mobileye business is going to look like over the next couple of years, especially as we see more cars enabled with this technology on the roads?
You're right, and while Intel is a big company, Mobileye did approach almost $1 billion in revenue last year. So that's a significant milestone, and with an annual growth rate of 30–40% for this business, even for the traditional ADAS business, we expect it to continue to grow and be a more material part of Intel's bottom line. But what's more interesting, to the point of your question, is what's Mobileye doing beyond driver assistance, and how are they growing, and how do we expect them to contribute more to Intel's bottom line? And that's really where the mobility as a service business opportunity comes in. We estimate that to be a $160 billion TAM by 2030. And Mobileye's solution, we believe, is going to be a differentiating solution in that market and really help us capture a lot of that market revenue.
All right, so when we talk about mobility as a service, what exactly does that mean to Mobileye? Because we know that more and more consumers are looking to ride-sharing services, ditching their own cars even, wanting to utilize other services. So how is Mobileye enabling the mobility as a service initiative?
I think many people think about Mobileye traditionally as just a component supplier, right? And for traditional driver assistance solutions where you sell the chip through a tier one that builds the car for the OEM, that's how it works. But in the mobility as a service space, it's completely different. Here, Mobileye is doing every element of the entire stack. So not just the hardware, but also the software and algorithms, the fleet management, the advertising, the entertainment inside the vehicle, the cars themselves with partners like NIO. And so really operating as a mobility as a service provider that is fully vertically integrated all the way from the hardware to the app on the consumer's cell phone.
Right, because we know that they are also, them being Lyft and Uber, in hot pursuit of driver assistance systems being utilized in their businesses. So when could we see a Mobileye Robotaxi service launched across the US?
What we've announced publicly is Tel Aviv, Israel will be our first location in 2022. At the show this week, we also announced a new partnership with a city in South Korea, where we'll have a driverless Robotaxi service operating there in a similar time frame. And then recently we announced a partnership with RATP in Paris, where beginning this year we will start testing on roads, again for a commercially deployed driverless vehicle Robotaxi service in Paris in 2022. So stay tuned for more locations, including the US, but those are the ones we've announced publicly to date.
Okay, well those are just a couple of years down the road, but looking at today and the deployment of technology, I think maybe a disconnect for some consumers when they think about self-driving cars is this a daunting image of completely new vehicles on the road once that happens. But how is Mobileye enabling the transition from the advanced driver system to fully autonomous?
We're seeing this interesting trend that as we develop technologies for driverless vehicles, we're seeing opportunities where that same technology can be reused and to make a driver assistance vehicle even better. So for example, if you take the high definition map that the driverless vehicle uses to know where it is in the world, and you instead put it into a human driven vehicle, your driver assistance system can work better by keeping you in the lane, for example, even when there are no lane markings, or it's a residential area and there are no explicit lanes, because that information then is in the map. So it's an example of how we're making driver assistance capabilities even better and safer. And we're excited about that because these are the same building blocks, right, that make up what a driverless vehicle looks like. So as consumers get more exposure and they get more comfortable with those technologies on a day-to-day basis because their new cars have better and enhanced driver assistance functions, then we think they're going to be more receptive and open to trying out a driverless vehicle, and that's available a few years later.
All right, that sounds great. And so speaking coming when fully autonomous vehicles are available. What do you think is there an updated roadmap that we have for that reality, and what progress do you expect to be made on that front in the coming year, especially when you have all of these other factors to consider, in addition to your own technology and initiatives that you're developing, but also what competitors are doing in the space?
So from a technology development standpoint, we are absolutely on track. We haven't pushed out our dates. We've been saying 2022 from the beginning. And in fact, we just released online on the Mobileye YouTube channel an over 20-minute video that shows an incredible fully automated drive around the streets of Jerusalem using cameras only. So this is a technical feat that we don't believe anybody else has performed. And so for us, that's exciting for us to see that the technology is maturing. But even if the technology is done, you're right, there are other challenges. There's the regulatory environment. There's currently a lack of standards in the industry in terms of what does it mean for a machine to drive safely. And that's where we're helping lead the industry to create new technical standards that define for industry and for government alike, what does driving safely mean? How do you define it? How do you measure it? How do you assess it so the governments can know when to give a driver's license, if you will, to a virtual vehicle? And that's something that really just needs to happen in collaboration with the whole industry and government working together, and we're pleased to be leading that effort as well.
All right, and for all of our CES coverage, make sure you check out investors.com/CES.